So after we were married for at least a couple years, we sat down over drinks at dinner and had a discussion as far as ideally how many kids we would want to have. And so once I did get the positive test result, I lined up some stuffed animals in front of what will be Aiden's room with a pregnancy test and wait for Roy to come home.
It was very much an excitement and a nervous time when I walked up and I saw everything lined up. I immediately knew as soon as I saw the stuffed animals that we were going to be having a child, and just the excitement and the nervousness that went along with it. It's very hard to explain, but overwhelmed with joy at the same time, knowing that we were moving into our next phase of our life.
So when it was time to have Aiden, I actually had to get induced because my blood pressure started to go up at the end. First, it wasn't too bad. I wasn't sure what to expect, just first child, not sure what full-blown contractions felt like, but I soon found out.
Yeah, I didn't really have to endure much of that, so for me it was more of being a cheerleader. I was beyond excited and nervous and overwhelmed. We already knew what we wanted to call him, and you know, as the whole process was going on, we were just anxious, really. I was just at that point where I wanted to hold my son.
The first day that we brought Aiden home, I was still trying to figure things out being new parents, and apparently we failed at the first diaper at home too. Because he was in one of those sleep sacks, and we didn't realize it, but he had somehow wiggled his way out of the diaper. For some reason, that sleep sack had a hole where the butt was, so all of a sudden we went to go hold him and realized that he had gone to the bathroom and his butt cheek was hanging out.
Aiden is very much a serious boy. He always puts other people in front of him, so he's always trying to make sure that other kids are having fun, having a good time, being taken care of. He's like a little host, and since he was little, he's been the same way. So he knows how to make us smile, and just very caring. He's very much a caring boy, but he's also a fun-loving kid at the same time.
So we had decided to have Brady. It took a little while. We thought maybe we were one and done, just because we were enjoying so much time with Aiden and trying to adjust to everything. But when it came down to it, we wanted to make sure that Aiden had a little brother or sister to go ahead and play around with, just because they end up being your best friends, especially earlier in life. So again, we stopped preventing, and too much of our shock, just because we've known many people and seen many people go through struggles and being able to conceive children. And first time again, it was more of a, wow, look at this, more like, are you kidding me? Like, it just happened that quick again.
I couldn't even look at her.
Yeah, so
get her pregnant again.
Finally, he was born, and same emotions, disbelief. Here's this person that's been punching and kicking me inside, and excitement to go ahead and have Aiden meet his little brother.
Again, very excited to welcome another child into the world and to have our family be complete at that point. It was very exciting time for us again, and just like you can tell, it just brings out a big smile thinking about it because it's so special.
The day after Brady was born, doctor came in to do the wellness check and just said very nonchalantly, "Oh, looks like Brady might have craniosynostosis. It's, we'll just go ahead and give you a referral." Not even less than a week after he was born, we were over at Hope Children's Hospital meeting with the neurosurgeon, and they're not as tactful as, he was a great surgeon, but they're not as tactful as, the pediatricians tend to be in dealing with parents. They're very factual. So he comes in, he goes, "Oh yeah, your son definitely has metopic and sagittal craniosynostosis. We're gonna have to do surgery. We're gonna cuff ear from ear, and we're gonna have to create the soft spots again, because pretty much his soft spots had already closed before he was born, which was also why it was harder, to go ahead and deliver. And here's this list of 5 different doctors that you need to go to see. Thank you, have a good day.
It didn't hit me until that day when we were at the hospital with the follow-up appointment, and I guess it's difficult, to really think about that and think of what am I going to put my son through. He just got here. I don't really know how to explain the full range of emotions, because you kind of wonder about, did we do something wrong, or why us? Why are we going through this again? Why do we have to deal with another set of birth defects? As simple or as complicated as they may be, it just kind of makes you wonder why you're put in that position, and why your son, who just got here, has to endure that type of pain as he's growing up, even before going into a surgery like that where they need to reshape his skull. So that's the part. I mean, it still kind of seems like yesterday when we talk about that part, because it was so emotional trying to deal with all of that.
So the surgery ended up happening at 8 months. So it was February of 2012. The day lasted forever. I know something that, obviously making sure he survived the surgery, but then my fear was, I've known this kid with this kind of pointy forehead, and just kind of like his misshapen skull. That's all I've known for up to the 8 months. So how different is he going to look when I go to see him in the recovery room when the surgery's done? He's going to have a flatter forehead, his face is going to be rounder, all medically necessary, in order to be able to make sure that he's able to grow. In fact, when the surgeons had released, they had taken off the part of the skull to go ahead and release the pressure, they said his brain just like sighed with relief. So there was a lot of pressure on it that would continue to get worse. But what was his personality going to be the same? Was anything else going to be affected? Was he going to look the same? So it was just a very stressful time.
Brady was doing great. He didn't know what was going on. A little nervous, obviously, and not knowing what was going on. But he had his beautiful, super Brady outfit with a cape on it, and the staff was very good with him and trying to keep him entertained, and just keeping us somewhat calm as well with everything. There was a few hiccups along the way, when they were trying to get his IV in, they couldn't get it in. So you had this poor little boy who didn't know what was going on, and he's getting poked and prodded, and I had a very difficult time just looking at that procedure. There wasn't much I could do other than maybe hold them down or help hold them down while they're trying to do it. As we go into the prep room and we're playing with them again, very nervous, but at the same time his personality really came out. He was laughing and playing with our little hats, in the prep room, and pulling them down over our faces to make them laugh. And it was just really cool to see him again, not knowing what's going on. It calmed us down enough. Yeah, it was enough to calm us down and to be ready for that moment when they come to say, okay, this is as far as you guys can come along. That was when it really got hard, because again we didn't know what was going to happen then.
And we had a lot of preparation as far as what to expect from the doctors going through it, and a lot of really good organizations that we found online. Some that would actually send like care packages for what you're going to need in the hospital, just because they end up having really significant swelling up to 72 hours after the surgery, to where the eyes swell shut and they can't see, which do that to a baby that's not understanding why he's in pain, and why there's doctors and nurses coming in, like hearing the doctors and nurses coming in, not being in his familiar surroundings. We at least had an opportunity to kind of prep, get some toys that he would recognize to play with before, to kind of keep him calm afterwards. So we have more of an idea of what to expect. Definitely didn't make it any easier. I know I was relieved when we went into the recovery room that he looked like Brady still, Brady with a flatter forehead.
So shortly after we finished with Brady, same year, it was 2012. That year, as we call it, I started to get a lot of chest pains around the summertime, and they were very mild at first and just kind of continued to build up for me. I chose to ignore them. I figured, hey, I'm getting older. I drink a ton of coffee every day. You know, I eat a lot of spicy food. Could just be indigestion, and I let it go. I just let it go. A few months went by, it started to get worse, and I just continued to ignore it. I was drinking Tums and Pepto by the bottle, and I just decided, hey, you know what? It'll go away. With time, it'll just go away. I'll see a doctor at some point. The pain was so bad that I couldn't even stand up straight anymore. And my wife and my boss at the time looked at me and they were like, hey, you don't look good, man. You don't look good at all. Like, you should go see a doctor. And I was like, I'll be all right. I'll make an appointment, is what I said. And Karen looked at me, she goes, you're white. You're not supposed to be white. You know, call the doctor, let him know what's going on. We're sitting on the couch watching TV, and the phone rings. I pick up the phone, and it's my GI doctor who had done the endoscopy. It's like, hey, we need you to come in. And I'm thinking, I was just in the hospital for like 3 or 4 days over, 2 visits. I really don't want to go. It's not something I want to do. And he's like, well, we really need you to come in. And I was like, I'm here. My wife is sitting next to me. You're obviously calling for a reason. Just tell me. And I think at that point he realized I wasn't coming in. He's like, okay, if you want me to tell you, I'll go ahead and tell you. You have stomach cancer. And I was like, shocked. I didn't know what to expect. She knew something was wrong immediately. The only things I can really remember from that phone call at that point were, we know it's a lot to take in. Just be where we tell you to be. We'll make all the appointments. Don't worry about any of that. Just be where we tell you to be when you need to be there. It's like, okay. Beyond that, I have no idea what he said outside of that. But I got off the phone, and she's, in my ear, like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? So I finally told her, and the look of fear that set in on her face is that's something I can't get rid of from that standpoint. But I don't know why. My first phone call wasn't to my parents. It wasn't to friends. It was to my boss. I called my boss and I was like, hey man, I'm not going to be coming into work anytime soon. All these appointments come up and like, yeah, we need you to have surgery on Monday. And it was the Monday I was supposed to go to Arizona. And I was like, yeah, can we wait a week? The doctor was like, absolutely not. You have stage 2B stomach cancer. It's a very aggressive cancer. If you go, we're probably going to have a different discussion when you get back. We need to take care of it immediately. I was like, okay, so canceled everything. Went into the hospital, and I was expecting to have a laparoscopic surgery to remove less than a third of my stomach where the tumor was at. And we were pretty comfortable with that. We thought we had a plan in place and that we were gonna just get through the surgery and then start the chemo treatments and go from there. But once they opened me up, they realized that the tumor was much larger than they anticipated, mostly because it was in the stomach wall. And so they couldn't really see the true size of what was going on. So when they went in and they were looking around, they saw that it had broken through both sides of my stomach wall. They were concerned that it might have gotten beyond stage 2 at that point. And so they ended up removing the lower 2/3 of my stomach. They took several lymph nodes out as well, just to make sure that there wasn't any traces of cancer in those as well. And at the time, I was close to 280 pounds. I was a pretty big boy. Really enjoyed my life prior to that. A lot of food, a lot of beverages, and it caught me by surprise.
That day of the surgery, it was a lot different being in that waiting room. I mean, he was still gone for a very long time, and here I had a room full of people, but I felt, said I wasn't going to do this. I felt completely alone because everybody was in this room, and we'd taken over this one room in this waiting area, and all these people kids are playing, adults are his mom brought a bunch of food, so they're all just chatting away and just, kind of wasting the time. But I felt very, very much alone, because when we were going through with Brady, we were both there together. We both knew what to expect and rebelling together. Versus when he was going through his stuff, I was very much, my time, so I wanted to keep everything kind of normal for the kids and not show my emotions to him, because he had enough to worry about. I would just spend my time crying in the shower, wondering how I was going to do it all. But I went to go and see him, and he was talking to the nurse about how he likes long walks on the beach and everything. I'm like, okay, he's good. We're good. And my mom was like, you haven't eaten anything all day. Run down to the cafeteria while they're getting him salad, grab a bite. And like that 15, 20 minutes I was gone, I came up and he was in a world of hurt. I mean, talk about the look that you can't erase from your mind. I mean, he was just in so much immense pain, and I was yelling at the doctors because they weren't doing anything. Basically, like they got behind the pain, so they're having trouble catching up to keep them comfortable. But I had him focusing on me, and I was trying to tell him to think about good things. And I'm very thankful that he doesn't remember it, because I always told him afterwards, I'm like, even if I had years of therapy, I'd never be able to forget that moment. But finally, we got him all settled in and everything.
And I know I had cancer, and knew I was going to do everything I could to beat it. And for me, I was scared going into surgery. We had just gone through everything with Brady, and then here I am thinking, man, what if I can't beat it? What if I don't make it through all of this? What am my boys going to do without me? That was the hardest part that I dealt with. And even though going through all of that, those fears are still very real. I'm cancer free right now, and I'm loving every day of my life. But those are the dreams, those are the nightmares I have. That's what keeps me awake sometimes, is, what if it does come back? So, cancer really took a toll on us, and our lives had definitely drifted by no choice of ours. But support groups that we would go to, we were always the youngest ones there. We couldn't relate to anybody. I had signed up for a Spartan race with Brian and a couple of friends before I got sick, and I had used that as motivation to get through it all. We went out in July after I finished my treatments. My doctors really didn't like that idea, just because we were going to be running in mud, and I was already exhausted from all the treatment and germs and everything. But we went out and we ran it, and it took us forever to run it. It was just shy of 6 hours. But for me, it was one of the biggest accomplishments I've had at that point, was to be able to physically go out there and spend time with my friends, and just show myself that I can still do things. So Aiden and Brady, these two guys are very charismatic boys in their own way. Like I mentioned before, Aiden is a very sweet, loving boy, loves to learn, very regimented in everything that he does, just very much into science and math. I mean, that's the way he is. He's very analytical with everything that he does. Brady, on the other hand, he's our comedian. He loves to make people laugh and be the center of attention, and always trying to find a way to be that attention. As I see them interacting with everybody, that comes out all the time.
We always say they're complete opposite ends of the spectrum, and everybody had said when they found out that we were having two boys, they're going to be completely different. Like, how different can they actually be? But they really are. We have our oldest doesn't have an aggressive bone in his body, to the youngest one, who's very competitive and always wants to be in the forefront. Even it came out. Something that sticks out that just reflects it perfectly is we were playing the board game Sorry, and Aiden, the sweet boy that he is, decided to bypass getting a second turn because that means he would have to knock me off the board. And then all of a sudden he turns into Brady's turn, and he was able to take out one of the pieces, and he takes his piece, his game piece, and flings my piece off the board. He's like, I'm taking out mommy, and it goes flying across the room. So it's just that point. I mean, it's just, again, they're complete opposite, but they complement each other so well. And they, for the most part, they are, each other's best friends. Sometimes they wake up worst enemies for a day, but they are lost when the other one is not around. They make us laugh every day. And as tired as we are sometimes in chasing after them or dealing with arguments, and I'm gonna tell mom, like, don't even step foot on the stairs unless somebody's bleeding, figure it out. It's just like, I couldn't imagine my life without them.
She's keeping an eye on all those hugs that she gets every night. The hugging and tickling, that's their special time. And for me and Brady, Aiden will give me a big hug as well, but it's different with mom. When it comes to Brady, he'll always call me into the room after he gives mom a kiss, and he'll say, hey, 3 kisses. He gives you 3.
Regular kiss, a kiss, and a butterfly kiss.
Yeah, he'll call me and he's like, Dad, can I give you a kiss? I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. And I was all excited to go in there because I was finally getting a kiss from Brady. And I walk into his room and put my cheek by him, and he comes up and he just gives me a big Cerbert on the cheek, and I'm like, foiled every night.